Colleges are pushing people to use its pronouns. I'm going to react to this and your other woke horror stories, personal scenarios, and questions that you guys have for me in this Voicemail Friday episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, our media, and our politics, all from an independent perspective. Guys, if you ever want to send in a voice note, the link is, as always, in the description. Now, I love hearing from you guys, and we're going to kick this one off with this episode of Voicemail Friday. We're going to kick it off with a real doozy. But when I say a doozy, I mean like a doozy of a doozy. New pronouns just dropped, and they're not really human. Let's listen.
Hi, Brad. Sorry about the background noise. I'm actually in college right now because I just saw this on the cafeteria TV. You would think that this sort of shit would be left in like 2020, but they're just introducing these all new pronoun badges, right? So we have these lanyards, and they are introducing these clip-ons that you can get at the office, and they have the ones I saw on the TV, where they had they, them, obviously he and she, but they had it's, like they, them, and it's in a college. These are adults, right? These are actually adult human beings. What is going on in the UK?
Dude, that is a very good question. What is going on in the UK? And frankly, the pronoun pins are, I wouldn't say the least of their concerns because it is pretty crazy, but not even the top of my list. Every single day, I am seeing people getting rounded up and arrested for social media posts, just the most authoritarian attacks on freedom of speech and acts of censorship going on in the United Kingdom. It genuinely makes me really sad and really concerned, and just makes me think that I genuinely believe parts of America would be like that if we didn't have the First Amendment and stringent legal protections for this stuff. But no, the pronoun pin thing is, on one level, it's just silly and absurd, but on another level, it's kind of sad. I mean, its pronouns is literally dehumanizing. It's like making a human being sound like an object, sound like they're not even human. And they're presenting this as if it's some sort of like cute, fun thing or valid new identity that just dropped. And then, of course, that if you don't use that, if you refuse to participate in what I would say is like dehumanizing language, that's bigotry. That's, an assault on their dignity and their rights. You're misgendering them. I think that's really disturbing. And the idea that institutions are pushing this is not like, okay, you're at a college and the kid with blue hair shows up with a pronoun pin. It's like the top down, they are pushing the idea that human beings can be its, and they, them, which is ascientific, right? Basically, every human being is biologically male or female based on their sex and the structure of their reproductive system. And it's also disturbing to me because colleges, at least in the US, and I imagine the same is true in the United Kingdom, they claim to be these bastions of social justice and feminism and these other ideas, but then they also push these kind of retrograde notions. I mean, the idea that like, oh, I'm non-binary, I have different pronouns, I'm not a she, her, I'm not a woman, I'm not a man because I'm not masculine, or I'm not a woman because I don't present typically feminine. I know they don't realize it. I know they don't see it. I know they exist in such an echo chamber that it's never pointed out to them, but that is actually sexism. The truth is that it's okay to be a male and you don't have to act a certain way. You're allowed to have whatever personality you want. It's okay to be a female, and to dress a way that is not typically female doesn't make you an it's. And the people pushing that are not feminists. I feel like I'm going crazy even that I have to say that. Like, the Delulu is off the charts. Haven't dropped that one in a while, but it's true. What do you guys think? Have you encountered this level of pronoun nonsense, or have we not hit that level quite yet here in the US? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, yada, yada, yada. Remember to send in your voicemails. The link is in the description. And now we are going to hear from somebody who got called or compared to a Nazi for a simple suggestion that is not, in fact, that crazy. Let's listen.
Hi, Brad. My name is Dominic, and I have a woke horror story to share with you. So, during a debate that I had with a friend, the debate was about how I support distinguishing sexual orientation, gay same sex attraction, which is tied to your biological drive towards men, from gender identity, whereas trans is self identification. And I believe in respecting both of their truths. I don't believe in lumping all of them into one movement. But because of this, because of my belief of that, I was called a Nazi multiple times. He even played me music from the Third Reich about it. When I mean multiple times, I mean harassed. And even after our conversation, he still was sending me messages about how I was a Nazi. And when I asked why I'm apparently this Nazi, it was because the Nazis segregated people. And he said, I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm not. I'm recognizing the differences. That's not transphobia.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you in that simply arguing this is not new. The LGB without the TQ, that's not a new thing. People have been saying that. And we'll come to the Nazi thing. Of course, that's ridiculous. But I don't think there's anything inherently transphobic or hateful about simply saying these things are different and meaningfully different and distinct concepts. I think if I was starting from scratch, I would never merge the two in the first place. I really don't believe they have that much in common. And in some ways, even they can be contradictory or at odds. Then again, I think some things, sometimes the ship has sailed, and the idea that you're going to really successfully rebrand to just LGB or anything like that strikes me as kind of far-fetched. But anyway, it's a totally legitimate conversation to have. And somebody suggesting you are at all problematic simply for talking about it is being closed-minded, not intellectually honest or curious. And then also, I mean, I really have an issue with the constant, frivolous, absurd, hyperbolic invocations of Nazis and Hitler. It is such a disgrace, so insulting to the memories of all those lost in the Holocaust, brutally murdered by Hitler and that terrible regime. And you're just minimizing it and downplaying it and watering this stuff down, all to score points that don't even make sense. Oh, well, you're like the Nazis because they wanted to segregate people too. No one's talking about segregating anything. Talking about how things are different doesn't mean you're segregating them. Ask your friend, are straight people part of LGBTQ plus? No. Well, then why are you segregating them? Simply having categories that include some things and not other things is not segregation. And y'all sound deranged. Now, what they mean is that you want to segregate, and I hate to even use that word in this context, things between the sexes, like sports or other such things. Yeah, well, not all distinctions or differences or categories are bad. I mean, surely your friend would agree that it makes sense that we separate sports by age, and we have the fifth graders play soccer with the fifth graders, and the 12th graders and 11th graders play with the other high schoolers. Oh, but you're segregating them. No, it's obviously there are some categories and distinctions where it is appropriate to treat them differently on the basis of those things. And there are some where it's not just inappropriate, but evil to do so, like race. And you have to be able to be a thinking person and draw those distinctions. And sounds like your friend is probably beyond saving at this point. I mean, maybe maintaining a relationship, maintaining a connection is worth it, because then if they start to wake up one day, they have a kind of a lifeline. But yeah, I mean, you can't reason with somebody who's that far gone and is unironically invoking the Nazis over such a basic and frankly uncontroversial conversation. Thanks for the note, and good luck dealing with all that, because it sounds exhausting. Meanwhile, and this is sad, this is such a recurring theme on this podcast, We have yet another family being torn apart over politics.
So I was publicly disowned by my cousins on the internet. A day or two after Trump won the election, my cousin decided to make a post on Facebook talking about how if anybody voted for Trump, they are dead to him, and they will also never be a part of his life, his wife's life, and his son's life. And I took a lot of offense to that because I am a family member of his, and I voted for Trump along with my parents, and also my grandmother voted for Trump as well. That is also his grandmother. So I decided to stand up to him, and I responded to his remark, and I said, well, then just understand your whole family is dead to you now, and this is a very disrespectful thing to say, and, I hope you understand truly how strong of words you're saying right now. And then suddenly it turned into this whole mess, and he somehow made himself the victim, along with his sister, which is my
Shocker.
cousin, and they claimed that they couldn't love me anymore, and they unfollowed me on Instagram. They said our morals and values don't align, and then they have not spoken to me since. So I'm getting married in June, and I'm not inviting them to my wedding. So what are your thoughts on, family members doing this to you, cutting ties because of political beliefs?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this is not a news story for me. This is something I have probably at this point received hundreds of voicemails with some sort of story about this. Political differences leading somebody, usually the left-leaning person in the family, to cut off the MAGA person. But I have also absolutely heard, and even in my personal life, knowing some people from West Michigan where there's a lot of Christian conservative families where sometimes their kids grow up, go to college, come back as liberal young adults. I've also heard the opposite way where it's like, I can't believe you voted for Biden. You're dead to me, or what have you. But at least because my audience and because of what I cover, because I think I generally lean to the right, and so do a lot of my viewers, I tend to hear more of the stories of the opposite direction. I also think that's a little more common for left-wing people to cut off family over political differences than right-wing people, but it does happen in both directions. And I just think it's a tragedy. I don't think you've done anything wrong. You're certainly well within your rights to not invite them to your wedding after they treated you like this. Yeah, why would you? But the only thing that jumps out to me is I do wish this conversation could have happened in person. It sounds like you went back and forth with your cousin on social media. Really, I recommend against that. I think people are able to have much more productive conversations and be much less snappy and judgmental and absolutist when you're face to face, right? Than when you are just behind a screen typing words. There's something about that leads to black and white thinking, leads to this with us or against us mentality. So I do wish you could have actually been in a room with your cousin and your grandma and talked about all of it, because then maybe you kind of got through to them in a way that you're just not going to ever get through to somebody duking it out on Facebook comments. But it's just sad. I mean, people are complex beings, shades of gray. Very, very few human beings, if any, are unambiguously bad or unambiguously good. And so when you are just writing someone off because of their basically irrelevant vote, like one vote makes no difference one way or the other, there's two problems I have with that. One is that even if you say, for example, grant the premise that voting for Trump is immoral and wrong, well, because someone does one thing that is not moral in your view, doesn't make them a totally bad person, doesn't mean you can't have a good relationship with them. Obviously, there's some level of immorality or being harmful to others where you have to distance yourself from a person and it overrides everything. But I don't think simply checking off a bubble on a ballot sheet, especially, and this comes to the second point, there's a lack of intellectual humility, right? Because what you are saying, if you are this cousin in this situation, is that I have the world figured out, all these complicated issues that divide our politics, all the thousands of news stories and policy positions where these candidates differ. I know all of it to the point where I know all the right answers about all of it, to the point where no one could possibly disagree with me and be coming from any sort of place of good faith. They must just be evil. I think that is probably the most arrogant and intellectually dishonest. There is no humility to that thinking at all. And I think it's the most arrogant position or thinking that is at all prevalent in American society today. Because in reality, I am a political journalist and content creator. I spend all day monitoring the news. I've spent years reading about stuff, covering stuff, and yet every single day I encounter news stories or issues where politicians are taking stances on things of great importance that I feel like I don't know enough about to draw a firm conclusion. And yet these random people who don't know much about politics, don't do this for a living, think they have the whole world figured out, to black and white cookie cutter morality, all these complicated issues and everything. I find that to be really, really arrogant and disgusting. And then I find this whole thing to be so sad because family relationships are so special and so important. And my grandparents are passed away now. I have my in-laws, some grandparents on my partner's side who are wonderful and who I love very much. But my grandparents are passed away. So and the idea that you're discarding a relationship over something this petty and this one-dimensional is just so sad, because that person is not going to be around forever, and your cousin may have regrets when your grandmother passes away. But same with the cousin relationships and the other extended family. It's like, wait, you've lost people through actual death, sadness, like terrible incidents and tragedies, or through fractured, broken family relationships, through abuse or other things, all of which, I have some experience with, and many people have much more than I. Then you look at these people just throwing away their family relationships for no good reason. And it's not just sad, it's kind of infuriating, honestly, because they are just taking for granted and then discarding these beautiful, precious relationships they could have that other people had taken from them by fate or by force. It's really horrible. But no, you didn't do anything wrong. I think all you can do is maybe try to extend an olive branch at some point to your cousin, keep an open mind, be the bigger person. But yeah, I'm really sorry. And I wish I could say your story was an outlier, but it's really not. Okay, guys, we got a funny question from somebody asking me about something that happened years ago that I talked about at the time, but then forgot. Apparently, there's a cartoon show called Big Mouth, which I have never watched, but my boyfriend watched at least a few episodes of it years ago, with a couch pillow named Brad Polumbo. And this person encountered that and wanted to ask me about it. Let's listen.
Hey Brad, my name is Megan. I was just curious what the story is of the pillow in Big Mouth being named after you, Jay's pillow. I was watching Big Mouth the other day, and the pillow's name is Brad Polumbo, and the more I look at it, it kind of looks like you. So I was just curious what the story is behind that, and if you were in on it, or if they just wrote that. I couldn't really find much online besides people calling you a crazy far-right activist. So I just was wondering, but I love your content. Keep up the good work.
Thank you for the question and for watching the content and everything. No, this is so funny to me because this happened a couple years ago, and the short answer is I have no idea. I literally do not know what this is or why it happened. But people at the time were like, wait a sec. Also, the funny thing is he's like, I've never seen the episode or watched any of the show, but I believe it's a pillow they like have sex with. One of the character has sex with. It's really weird. And so the thing is, it has to be based on me because my name is spelled unusually. So Polumbo is it's a common Italian last name, but it's usually spelled with a P-P-A. But my name is spelled P-O for whatever reason. I'm not even sure. Anyway, but when you look at the subtitles and like the text associated with the show, they spell it P-O. And then the pillow does kind of almost have these features that look like me, like the very strong eyebrows. So I don't know. I mean, my theory is that there's no way that it's just random or coincidental, that maybe there's some like woke gay writer or something that was trying to mock me or take shots at me by naming this pillow that is used as a sex object after me. It's genuinely one of the most random and weird things that has happened throughout my career. And I wish I had a good answer for you, but I actually just don't. But I just wanted to include this because people ask me about this every so often. And it's just this random, add it to the long list of bizarre and weird Brad Polumbo lore, I guess. I genuinely don't know. What do you guys think? Have any of y'all seen that when you were watching that show? Let me know in the comments. And just regardless, make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, yada, yada, yada. Now, I want to take another question from somebody who is a member of the LDS Church, aka or formerly known as the Mormon Church. Let's listen.
Hey, Brad. My name is Amanda. First of all, I just wanted to thank you for the compassionate and respectful way that you covered that tragic church shooting in Michigan this past weekend. I'm a member of the LDS Church, and it was really refreshing to hear a political commentator say such kind and warm things about us and cover it in such a way. So thank you so much for that. My question is, how were you led to the more independent perspective of the political spectrum, and what made you decide to share the views that you have in the way that you do? You've done a lot of good work. You have a lot of good things to say. You seem really cool and fun. So just thanks for all the hard work you do. And I would love to hear more about what led you to your views. So thanks. Happy weekend.
Well, I will absolutely answer your question from the second part, but first I just want to briefly touch on the first part that you mentioned about me saying kind things about the LDS Church and its members. I do not do that to be like complimentary. I just do that because it's just like a fact that I encounter over and over again, that I am blown away by the kindness and generosity of LDS people. I mean, for example, this story of this terrible shooting that I covered on my YouTube channel, I don't think I talked about it on the podcast, but in some of my bonus videos at this church in Michigan, which of course is where I lived until very recently, is where I'll be moving back to in a few years potentially. It would disturb me that somebody would attack any place of worship, whether it's Mormon, a synagogue, anything. I would always be against that and horrified by it. But so I spoke about it and the political lens of it, and just my heart goes out to the LDS Church and all its members, because it's just a terrible thing for anything to happen. But then I was blown away by this. It confirmed every impression I've ever had about LDS people, is that they actually, I think it's primarily LDS members, have fundraised for the family of the shooter. Correct. You heard that correctly. They fundraised for the wife and children of the shooter, who had no connection to the crime but have been put through hell. They raised a ton of money and sent a message of support and love to the family of the shooter. To me, that just tells, like, that's just stunning to me. And I won't get into, because I'm not even very well educated in it, but I'll just say that, like, obviously I don't share a lot of the beliefs that LDS people hold in terms of religious or theological beliefs, but I don't judge people based on that. I judge people based on how they treat others and how they show up in the world. And on that basis, I mean, I'll just say my interactions and experiences with LDS people are overwhelmingly disproportionately positive, my impressions of them. And so I'm so glad that you listen to the show and enjoy it. And I, again, send my love to all of you after that tragic shooting. Now, for how I got my kind of political bent and how I started even speaking out on all of this, I'm going to give you like a super short version. I could go on at great length, and I think I have in some podcast interviews and other stuff over the years. But basically, I went to a super far left college, the University of Massachusetts. It was insufferably woke, highly censorious, incredibly toxic, and unhinged left-wing radicalism. I wasn't super political, but I showed up there. It kind of repulsed me, and I was like pushed to the right. And then in the years since, I became more disillusioned with like the Republican Party, conservative media, kind of MAGA movement, and I became more of an independent and still have right-leaning views, but am not closely associated or supportive of these broader institutions or groups. And that happened over the course of many years, just watching, how biased and messed up right-wing media is in its own right, and how it can often just be a mirror image of like MSNBC, but in the opposite direction. And then many other things. And so that's kind of where I ended up today. How I decided to speak out is I just have always been a little bit of a shit stir. And when I started speaking out on campus, I got so much pushback and hate that I liked it. And I kept doing it and poking the bear and doubling down. And then it led to professional opportunities for me while I was still in college that kind of changed my mind. And I had thought I wanted to go and become a lawyer and practice law. And I think I would have been good at that, but I enjoy this more. And probably, I mean, there's pluses and minuses. Overall, probably lead a better life doing this. But yeah, that's the super short answer. I'm going to take one final voicemail from somebody who is having some issues with their dad. Let's listen.
Hi, Brad. I'm a huge fan of the show. I have a story. Not exactly sure if it's a woke horror story, but I would like to hear your response to it. So I'm an atheist. I'm a conservative atheist, I would say. I'm living with my liberal agnostic mom. My dad is a conservative Christian, and my dad knows that I'm an atheist, or he did. And earlier this year, on Father's Day, my dad asked me to go to church with him. And, I'm not like an edgy conservative, but, or an edgy atheist like I used to be. So I did. I went with him. And, now, I've been going to church with him and doing this, Christians men group, which I kind of pretend to like. I kind of been going out of respect for my dad, and I wanted to spend time with him, but I don't really want to go. I really just want to spend time with my dad, and I feel like I'm lying to my dad. I can't really talk to my mom. She's like a liberal. She hates the church kind of thing. So do my sisters. I don't think the priest would appreciate, me being an atheist and going to him with this problem. So I'm not really sure where to go, what to even do with the situation. I just really want to hear your thoughts on this. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for sharing in the voicemail. There's actually an answer to this question that is simultaneously difficult and very easy and straightforward. You need to talk to your dad. You need to sit down with him in person and tell him what you just told me and see how he responds. Say, Dad, listen, I really want to spend time with you. I care about you. So I decided to go to church with you because I want to spend time with you. That's just not something I want to keep doing on a regular basis. Maybe I'm happy to go with you once in a while, but spending time with you is still really important to me. So I'm hoping we can find something else to do together and that you can respect and understand my decision and my feelings about that. And I have a 9 out of 10 certainty that your dad is going to handle that just fine. He'll appreciate you being honest with him, and that you may have overthought this. I understand why, but you may have overthought it a little bit. And frankly, you don't need to go to your priest. You don't need to go to your mom. You just need to go to your dad and talk to him and tell him where you're coming from. And I think he'll understand. But it's always really interesting to me how these dynamics play out in families with different beliefs, different faiths, different political stances. And it's kind of a recurring theme of the Voicemail Fridays is people trying to navigate these differences and these distinctions in our increasingly toxic and polarized world. But all we can do is our best. And I think communication is always direct, honest, in-person communication always has the highest chance of working out well in these situations. I can't say it will. It could go horribly wrong, but it's got the best likelihood of working out for everyone involved. That's my view, at least. But you guys, let me know if you disagree or have a different perspective in the comments. Do make sure to subscribe to the like button. If you're listening on an audio podcast, please do consider taking a second to rate or review this show wherever you're listening, and maybe even recommend it to a friend. That's the number one way the podcasts grow. If you know somebody that might like the Brad versus Everyone podcast. And with all of that out of the way, guys, remember the link to send in a voice note is in the description. And with that, guys, we'll talk again real soon.